Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and compare the iPhone 14 against the Nothing Phone 1 and see which specific phone is a better one for you. Now, I will definitely tell you if you want to pick up either one of these phones, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, one thing about both these phones, they're kind of going for different demographics. For one, the Nothing Phone 1 isn't really available everywhere in the world. It's available in a lot of places. Unfortunately, in the US, I was not able to get it, when it came out, but I was able to get it, separately. With the iPhone 14, this is a phone that's going to be available all over the place. So they're probably still available. I heard they're not selling too well, but it is what it is. Now, another interesting thing, they're going for different, people as well. The Nothing Phone 1 is a cheaper phone overall than the iPhone 14. I had to spend a little bit more than the average price for the Nothing Phone 1 to get it here, but the iPhone 14 was still a little bit more expensive, so definitely keep that in mind as well. Now, starting off with the outside of both these phones, the Nothing Phone 1 on the outside has a 6.55-inch OLED display, it's a 120Hz panel, and it's a 1080p panel as well. Now that panel was actually pretty good. When I was using it, it really wasn't that bad of a panel. I was expecting it to be way worse, something like a Pixel 5 in a way, but it was way better than that in my opinion. I really liked that 120Hz, and it wasn't a curved display, it was a flat display, but it was a hole punch display, which was really important. I'm glad this thing didn't have a notch or some ugly amount of bezel, and it's not a bad looking phone at all. With the iPhone 14 on the front, we have a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now this one is a 60Hz panel, which is kind of a letdown. I feel like Apple at this point could do 90Hz or something, but even if it's a little bit more, for $800, they can be doing better in my opinion for how expensive this phone is and for what you're basically getting. And we have a notch, which is another thing. So we're not only not getting 120Hz, but we're also getting that notch on this phone too. And I feel like if the Nothing company, if they can go and make a phone like this with this type of display, I feel like Apple could probably make a phone with a better display as well, at least for their iPhone base models. So in terms of that on the front, probably goes for the Nothing Phone 1. On the bottom, USB-C on the Nothing Phone 1, Lightning port on the iPhone 14, and on the back we have glass backs on both, but a very different type of glass back. The Nothing Phone 1 has a clear type of styling to it, which is cool so you can see the inside of the phone. The iPhone 14 has a standard glass back, so it's not frosted on either one of these, but I don't know. I don't really think I would want to get the Nothing Phone just because of the back. You also have this cool light architecture on the back of that phone too, which is cool. It's a novelty. If you're into it, that's awesome, but it's not a reason I would buy that phone. The iPhone 14 and the Nothing Phone 1 both have dual cameras on the back as well. So in terms of the outside, there's a lot of similarities, there's a lot of differences. Some other things to keep in mind, they both have some sort of IP certification. It looks like the Nothing Phone 1 isn't as great as the iPhone 14s. You're also getting the lack of SIM card tray on the iPhone 14, but you're getting things like that emergency SOS mode, and you're getting crash detection on the iPhone 14, which is a cool thing. The Nothing Phone doesn't have it, but I feel like the next couple generations of Android may end up bringing some features like that. I also think there's already some features like that built within Android, but regardless, the iPhone 14 has that natively built in with the hardware. So in terms of the outside, that kind of covers it up from there. Now in terms of the camera qualities, this is also a pretty big difference as well. So with the Nothing Phone 1, we're getting a 50 megapixel wide angle lens, then a 50 megapixel ultra wide sensor with a 16 megapixel wide angle lens on the front. With the iPhone 14, we're getting a 12 megapixel wide angle lens and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor with another 12 megapixel wide angle lens on the front. So pretty much just 12 megapixel cameras all throughout the iPhone 14. And this is what I'll tell you. The Nothing Phone 1, its highlight is not the camera. Definitely for sure. The highlight is the price tag. And I feel like with a lot of these budget tier Android phones, they really skimp out on the cameras. But I feel like Apple's doing that now too with the iPhone SE3. That camera is not any better than the Nothing Phone 1. I feel like the Nothing Phone 1 has a better camera than the iPhone SE3. But between these two phones, the Nothing Phone 1, first of all, I like the fact that it has an ultra wide lens. I like that a lot. You cannot do 4K at 60 on the back of this phone, and you cannot do 4K at 60 on the front. Even for a budget phone, I look at the Pixel 6 or even the 6a, having 4K at 60 is really important, right? You can do 4K at 60 on the back of the 6a. You cannot do that on the Nothing Phone 1. So that is kind of a disadvantage here. I never use 4K at 60, but you need to have those types of capabilities to future-proof yourself like crazy. Most people are not going to use 8K, on their cameras, on their iPhones or Samsungs, whatever, but it's really nice to have that feature. That way that phone is future-proofed even longer than it should be. In this case, I feel like they could do 4K at 60 to be honest, but you can't. The iPhones, on the other hand, you can do 4K at 60 on the front and the back, which is really awesome. But another thing on top of that is the camera quality is substantially better. It's less megapixel count, but we're able to get just a higher quality lens from that lower megapixel count. Is so weird, but Apple's processing of their images are much better than what you can get from something like a Nothing Phone and even OnePlus, right? that company has been doing camera quality. They've been trying to fix it for so many years, but Apple has just been so much better than a lot of these other manufacturers just because of that camera quality. Now, the Nothing Phone 1 also doesn't have too many features built into the camera, so that's another thing. But regardless, I'll tell you, the iPhone definitely has a better camera here over the Nothing Phone 1 in my opinion. Now, in terms of longevity, I feel like the Nothing Phone 1 is going to last quite a bit of time. I've heard a couple stories stating it's going to last for, X amount of years. We have to be a little wary with some of these newer phone manufacturers coming out and making these promises. I will tell you, iPhones have had a, history of being pretty decent at longevity of their phones. So I'd probably tell you the iPhone 14 is going to last for probably another 5-6 years, maybe even more than that. The Nothing Phone 1, who knows? It could last another 5-6 years. It could last another 2 years. I'm not 100% too sure, but when it gets time, when it finally gets to that point, I guess we're going to see what happens there. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. Now, in terms of performance, this is another kind of big difference here. The Nothing Phone 1 internally has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 778G plus 5G chipset, it's a mouthful, with 8 gigs of RAM on the base model, and it does go up to 12 gigs of RAM for the top tier model. The iPhone 14, on the other hand, has the Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM. Now, from the Nothing Phone 1, I actually thought that was a pretty decent performing phone, but because of that chipset, it kind of puts it in a weird position like I mentioned before. It is not a bad performing phone, and I think it's actually a pretty good performing phone for what the price that you're getting. Is it perfect? No. It's not going to be as crazy, performance heavy as something like an iPhone 14 Pro or anything like that, but it's still a pretty good performing phone. If you're playing games, if you're doing anything like that, it's going to be perfectly fine. With something like the iPhone 14, on the other hand, you are getting a consistently fast phone for sure. It's a faster phone and a better performing phone than the Nothing Phone 1, so that is one thing to keep in mind. However, it has and shares the same internals for the most part as the iPhone 13. You're getting more RAM, which is really cool, but you are actually lacking things like, the bigger, better chipset like we have on the Apple A16 Bionic chip on the iPhone 14. So although the iPhone 14 is probably, and what I mean by is the 14 Pro. So although the 14 is better than the Nothing Phone 1, the Nothing Phone is still a very good performing phone too, and I don't really think it's that big of a difference going from one phone to the other here. You're getting more RAM on the Nothing Phone 1, but you're getting a smoother and I think a better gaming experience on the iPhone 14 and just a better experience overall on the iPhone. But I feel like the Nothing Phone is still a very fast phone as well. So that kind of covers it up there. Battery life wise, you are getting a 4500 mAh battery on the Nothing Phone 1. We're getting a 3279 mAh battery on the iPhone 14. Now, wireless charging up, but you're getting a reverse wireless charging on the Nothing Phone 1, which is really awesome. So again, having that type of capability is really cool, and that in and of itself is really awesome. I will tell you the battery life is probably going to be better, I think, on the iPhone 14 than the Nothing Phone 1, but I've had really good battery life on my Nothing Phone 1 too sometimes too. So I've done a few battery comparisons. I might do another one between these two, but when it comes down to it, I'll probably tell you the iPhone 14 and the Nothing Phone 1. It's going to be like 50-50. I feel like the Nothing Phone 1 might be better actually now I think about it. But regardless, that kind of covers it up here. And to kind of sum up this whole entire video, I definitely will tell you, if you're coming from older phones than either one of these, then going up to something like either the Nothing Phone 1 or the iPhone 14 is going to be giving you a pretty good experience overall. I will probably tell you the one I would probably buy is the iPhone 14. I feel like that is more of a flagship and has more features overall than the Nothing Phone 1. But if you live in an area that actually has something like the Nothing Phone 1 available, then, test it out, see if you like it. It's pretty similar to an iPhone in terms of experience, but I do think the iPhone 14 might be the better one for a majority of people if you can actually afford it. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More important than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.